am Lindsay Smith, and joining me now is Derwyn Hodgins. He's the Commercial Business Manager for Hensall Co-op. Welcome here, Derwyn.
Good morning, Lindsay.
All right, so it is, we're headed into late August. The growing season has been a challenging one for sure. But I mean, our thoughts are starting to turn to harvest. I know that maybe it's feels a long way off, but of course, part of harvest for our dry beans, for a lot of our crops, includes harvest management. And now Hensall Co-op has made a decision to not allow glyphosate as a pre-harvest application on certain contracted beans. And I wanted to kind of go through the process of how Hensall came to this decision. So why don't we back up and look at sort of what has happened in the past on market access, on MRLs, and how Hensall has come to this decision.
Okay. First of all, it just isn't Hensall. It's basically most of the Canadian bean dealers throughout Canada that have come to this decision. And the whole part of the decision is to protect market access. Canadian dealers have worked so hard at growing their dry bean industry overseas, and we do not want to lose it because we've decided to go a certain direction, and our competitors in the rest of the world have not went that direction. And I guess I'd like to start by saying it was a difficult decision because Roundup or glyphosate has been an excellent tool for our farmers as a pre-harvest treatment. But where we are today, there was a series of events that actually led to our decision. And to begin with, I would say the fact that we're behind our largest competitor across the water. Michigan has been non-glyphosate for 2 years. Last fall, the Michigan Bean Commission contacted us and asked them to follow their non-glyphosate program. At that time, we were not ready to comply. But basically, Michigan and most of the U.S. states aren't using glyphosate today. In fact, they got a 2-year advantage on us. I was in a meeting recently in Colorado, the U.S. dry bean, and I asked an origination person down there for a very large company, how do they handle pre-harvest treatments? And they say they're probably 3% glyphosate being used as a pre-harvest. And at that time, if I would have told her, we were about 99%. So again, right now, Canada is a little bit behind in changing.
So what market is asking for this or demanding this or expecting this maybe? This non-use of glyphosate products?
Okay, basically it's the EU market, and there's a number of things that have happened in the news that have made it worse. So first of all, we've got one of our largest competitors, the U.S., has already went with a non-glyphosate program. The big companies such as Bush Beans that are supplied by ADM, they do not allow glyphosate in the number one brand in the USA. But if we look at the tariffs, right now Canada has a 25% advantage over the U.S. because there's a tariff against U.S. beans right now. Now, one of the things this caused the European buyers to do is they're starting to look at different origination areas now. They're looking at the Ukraine, they're looking at Kazakhstan, they're looking at Russia. They may do more production in Ethiopia. So the fact that, first of all the eggs were in in two baskets, the U.S. and Canada. Now these tariffs have caused the EU buyers to look at different regions. So these new regions are going to follow the EU's wishes. Now, another event that happened when we visited some of our customers in Europe this past January, February, they said, we do not allow our growers to use glyphosate as a pre-harvest treatment in Europe. And we want to send a strong message to you. Today, we have to buy from you because the U.S. isn't competitive with the tariff. But if we want high quality beans, we've got to buy your beans. But soon as we can buy non-glyphosate beans, you risk losing our business. So our European buyers sent us a very strong message. Another thing that happened was potential for Brexit. What could happen on October 31st? The UK could leave the EU. So right now, we've got this advantage, this 25% tariff, the US selling their product into the EU. On October 31st, if they have a hard Brexit and the UK becomes an entity of their own, at that point, the US could be able to ship their good quality, very competitive priced, non-glyphosate product into the UK. So all of a sudden, as of October 31st, we could be at a competitive disadvantage. And I'm going to say the last reason we made the decision, there was just so much negative publicity in the paper and on TV. Every time you picked up a paper, you saw Monsanto, which is now owned by Bayer, under another lawsuit. And right now there's approximately 13,000 lawsuits in the U.S. state and federal courts in the U.S. And there's huge awards. There's Dwayne Johnson received a judgment, a reward of $78 million. Another group in California received something like $2 billion in punitive damages, and another $55 million, and another $55 million in damages. So again, we can't take this. The negative publicity is awful, and it's just a matter of time. And we've actually went through this before and had products banned, and we learned to deal with it and went on.
Which products are those, and when was that?
Well, there was an excellent white mold fungicide used back, I'm going to say it was about 14 years ago, in about 2004, 2005. The product was called Ronlin, and it was an incredible product, and all dry bean growers used it. And what happened there was we could actually see the white mold in the field, and if we went and applied this Ronlin product, we could actually stop mold growth. But the problem was there ended up being a residue left in the bean, and the buyers could pick it up during testing, and it got banned right away. So if you wanted to sell dry beans, you had to guarantee Ronlin wasn't applied to the crop. So here we had an excellent product that we probably used for 7 to 10 years, superior to anything that's really on the market today. But we're very innovative, resilient. Our growers learned to use new products like Allegro and ProPulse, and our yields continued to grow, and we did quite well since 2004. So we know Canadian growers can adjust. We've got we believe Canadian growers are every bit as good as U.S. growers or European growers. It's just a matter of making changes to protect your market access.
Now we are specifically talking about glyphosate pre-harvest, not necessarily outside of the growing season. So not post or pre, let's say, post planting or pre-plant. But now, are we we do need to go through what the other options are, because of course, a pre-harvest application of glyphosate is not your only option if you're talking about, say, weed control or dry down or any of those things. So even though, a pre-harvest application may be registered, you're saying that it's a market access issue that is a no-go. So what are farmers' other options that are going to be absolutely okay on the market access side?
Okay, so I guess what I feel growers should do is they should check with their individual dealers. Certain dealers may go to different markets in the world where it may be accepted, and I'm going to give you some examples. So the biggest change is with what we're doing going forward is growers are going to have to look after their grass control prior to the pre-harvest. So any grass escapes need to be controlled earlier, and because they're not going to have the glyphosate option, and the options we're going to give them aren't going to give them the same control that glyphosate used to do. So what we've got to do is we've got to go in with a post-emergent graminicide, and again, we got to watch the labels. We've got to the pre-harvest intervals, etc. We're going to say, contact your local supplier, talk to your agronomy people, follow the label, use the proper rates and maturity. So these products would include products like Assure, Yuma, Contender, Post, Select, Venture. So there's probably 5 to 7 different graminicides you can use sort of late season to look after your grass control needs. And this is what's being done in other countries. So then what we do is we look at our pre-harvest options for Ontario going forward, or Ontario, and for us it would probably be most of Canada. So for all market classes of dry beans, with the exception being Azukis, we're going to go with Aragon and Merge. That's going to be our main program.
All right.
Now, for other products, and one product in particular, Azuki bean production. Azuki bean is a small red bean we grow for Japan. We're going to continue to use glyphosate because Azukis aren't marketed in Europe at any large volumes. The majority of our Azuki beans are going to Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea. And those countries are accepting glyphosate right now. So Azuki beans would be outside our dry bean recommendation. And then we have one third category for pre-harvest treatments. And this is where we're worried about, we want to protect the germination for seed production. Mm-hmm. So for our seed production, we're going to use Reglone, or we're going to use Aragon and Merge. And again, with all these products, I always follow the label directions and talk to your local agronomy team for timing and rates.
All right, absolutely. Okay, so thank you, Derwyn. We've got tons of info there. As you mentioned, and I absolutely agree, anyone who's got any questions, speak to, of course, who your buyer is of these beans. Make sure that you're following exactly what they need, as there may be some differences between organizations. But Derwyn, thanks so much for sharing all this. Definitely, it's not an issue that's going to go away, and the more awareness, the better. So thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much, Lindsay.